SEC in Springfield, WQEC in Quincy, and WMEC in Macomb.
Hello, welcome to Illinois Stories. I'm Mark McDonald in Decatur at Hickory Point Mall. You know, it's not unusual in malls to find specialty shops and niche retailers, but it is unusual to find a museum. And here at Hickory Point, at David Lee's Coliseum, Coke Museum and Gift Shop, you can have a Coke and a lot of smiles. Well, David Lee, this is probably, I guess you say it's the only Coke museum in Illinois.
That
right?
I know of, yes.
Okay, there's one in Kentucky.
Yes.
Everybody knows about the one in Atlanta because that's the official Coca-Cola. But there aren't many of these, are there?
No, there's not.
What is behind you wanting to do this?
I have a Coke habit, and basically, it started a long time ago, and I just kept going. Mm-hmm. And basically, I've always kind of overdone everything I do, and now it turned into a museum in the middle of my midlife crisis. So
well, at least you're honest about it, and you can face the devils, right?
Yes, very much so.
But this is really something. Here we are in the middle of the mall. Really, we're in the middle of the mall.
Correct.
This used to be a video store, I guess.
It did. Suncoast Video.
And now what you've got is you've got the gift shop in the front of the store, mm-hmm. and about 2/3 or maybe 3/4 of it is actually this Coliseum is what you call
yes.
it. It's wonderful, and you're going to show us through this today.
Absolutely.
You've got memorabilia here from as far back as, what,
1903.
1903. Mm-hmm. As we look around, you can see actually maybe dozens of Coca-Cola machines from all eras.
Yes.
And of course, signage and bottles and toys and all kinds of things. In fact, we're going to make our way to probably the biggest item that you have, which is a Coke memorabilia, which is the van, and we'll work our way over there. And on our way, I want to pick something up because this is of interest to me anyway.
Yes.
I asked you earlier what got you started in all this. And you said, well, it was a piece of art that I bought when I was, what, 18 years old?
18 years old.
You're a senior in high school.
Yep.
And what about this? You just had to have it.
I was just Christmas help at Spencer Gifts, and it reached out to me, mm-hmm. and that was the first piece, and it just basically, I looked at it, I thought it was cool, a crushed Coke can, not a full, but crushed, mm-hmm. and I said, I'm going to call that pop art. Mm-hmm. And I took it home, put it over my bed. Over the years, cool Coke cans would appear around
mm-hmm.
it. You know, I was still living at home with Mom, of course, at that
mm-hmm.
time, and that was the start of it. Mm-hmm. But then the trouble came when I got my own house.
Then you actually had too much room, right? You had to fill it.
Far too much room.
Let's work our way around a little
yes.
bit. We'll get a chance to see most everything in here. But let's work our way up toward closer to the front.
Okay.
My goodness, look at all these over here.
Always doing something neat.
Goodness.
Always doing some neat promotions.
And I really wanted to get a look at this while we had a chance first off, because this may be the rarest thing in your collection.
It is.
What about this van is so rare?
You can't hardly find them anymore at all. There's only 13 left on record that we know of. And sadly, I have 3 of the 13.
You have 3 of them?
I have 3 of them.
One of them is in your Coliseum.
Coliseum.
2 more are at home, huh?
At home in the garage.
Are they running?
They are all running.
Really?
The other 2 need a little bit more restoration
mm-hmm.
on them, but this is my best one, of course.
Okay. What's the story behind the denim machine?
This was a wonderful promotion in 1976 from Coca-Cola and Levi's Jeans, and Hot Rod Magazine designed this van. It was created at a place called Van Goodies in mm-hmm. Maywood, Illinois, and Coca-Cola originally ordered 10 of them, but when other businesses found out what was going on, mm-hmm. for example, bottling plants, car lots, radio stations. They also went and ordered some. Well, before long, Van Goodies was overwhelmed with orders for these vans, more than what they were prepared for, and they couldn't get these out quick enough. So what they ended up doing was literally they kind of ran out of parts here and there, but for the most part they're all alike. But it's kind of neat that they are all similar in paint job, and just it's a neat story. And so in the end there was about 105 of them or so, not exactly 100% sure. These are a Ford. There's actually even one Chevy out there, Chevy van. So there's lots of neat little stories about the vans, but we can only find 13 of them left. That was the 70s. There's probably some partying and stuff going on in these wonderful vans, and some of them got wrecked, and then over the past 30 years, it's
got painted,
got wrecked, whatever,
rusted
junked,
out, yep.
And it was free. So people probably didn't take as good care of them as if they paid for a vehicle.
Yeah.
So basically, it was just a neat promotion. I was only in junior high at this time, so I wasn't even driving yet. But when I found out about it, I had to have one. And of course, being the extremist that I am,
now
I have three.
Are you ever tempted to take it out on the road?
Yes and no. I'm scared because I trust my driving. I don't trust everybody else's.
I got you. Yeah, and of course it's all set up for with the window tray to go to the drive-in.
Of course.
In your van and have your root beer float.
Came complete with 8-track tape player, black and white TV,
Wow.
CB radio.
That was living, wasn't it?
Radar detector and everything. So
sure.
This one is even really complete because it still has the TV in it. Those were the first thing to always disappear. The TVs were the first thing to vanish, and so this one's really wonderful that it still has the TV.
Let's stay in the 70s for a minute and look just to our left here. Now, I've never seen one of these, and anybody, I guess, who's seen Star Wars, of course, is going to recognize this. But this is a rare object, isn't it?
This is the R2-D2 Cobot. This was designed and built in 1979 and 1980. And it's also by a company in Atlanta, Georgia, the home of Coca-Cola, that built these, and they are still in existence today.
And right now we're looking at the controls that it would have taken to run this thing. Of course, these were remote controls, and it had 8-track tape player to make the sounds. Huh?
And it actually took two gentlemen to run this. One was the one with the operator. Then he would make it move around to the left or to the right and make his head turn and everything. And then the other gentleman had the wireless microphone and this little very archaic Radio Shack box.
I see.
And he could listen to what, if they were at a parade, for example, they would actually go up to a little boy and say, hey, little boy, have a Coke and a smile, don't do drugs. And what they would do is this gentleman would be able to hear what was being said through this little microphone on the very front. And he could hear the little boy talk back to that. And then, of course, he would talk back on the wireless microphone, and it would just come through the speakers.
So our Cobot was talking back to the kid, and everybody could hear it, and the boy was just spellbound probably because he made contact with the other world.
And would talk back one-on-one. The 8-track tapes were issued out for, they had 4 different things on them, either the bleeps and everything that R2-D2 would do, and then also would have the Coca-Cola jingles and everything that would be going on. There was a Christmas tape for Christmas time when it would be at a Christmas parade, for example. It's very funny. The inside of this really looks like the inside of a Radio Shack. When you take it out, it's very archaic. And it's actually a car battery that sits in there too that gives it its power. And the neatest thing about this was these came with a kit. And the front sticker on front that says Coca-Cola, that's magnetic. And then you could change it out. Like at the same time, they were promoting like mellow yellow. And so you could actually make this a mellow yellow robot. And then of course that would change, and then the bottles on the feet would change as well.
I'll be darned.
So this is just
interesting.
So different.
Yeah, this is a recent acquisition for you, and you got it on eBay.
I did. I got it on eBay.
Isn't that something? That's great for a collector, isn't it?
Oh yeah, worldwide garage sale. It's wonderful.
Well, Coke is one of those brands that is known all around the world.
True.
And part of the display that we have in the museum here shows that. It shows the bottles and the cans and the brand from all these countries. Joyce Allen, you help your son here at the store and the museum.
I do.
Now I have to ask you, when did it come to your attention that he had some kind of a problem?
Well, when he was in late high school, you know, and he started collecting, and he probably has showed you his first pop art. So after that, it was easy then to poke around antique shops and things and find, you know, gifts for Christmas and birthdays and things. Made it easy.
When you're here in the store,
Yeah.
do you find that people are sometimes surprised to find that there's a Coca-Cola store and museum here in the mall?
Yes, they're very surprised to find this, and though they've seen, you know, some ads about it and such, and they're always happy to see it. And some people the other day said, "Oh, you're still here. That's wonderful." You know, after 6 weeks, because they say a lot of cool places, you find them and then they're gone.
Yeah.
Well,
yeah.
we're still here.
Well, good. You know, we mentioned Coke around the world, and I'm looking at the second shelf here in Spain, over to the right here. You and made a family trip to Spain several years ago, and these were some of the things you were able to bring back. Was it kind of fun being in a foreign country looking for things to bring back?
Oh, it really was. It really was. Whenever we'd go someplace to eat, we'd order Coke and bring the cans back and the bottles. And there was a straw dispenser back there that David wanted, and it was in a place he couldn't speak the language, so his nephew could speak the language, and he had to bargain with the proprietor of the store to sell him that thing. So
and doggone, he did, didn't he?
He did. Got it accomplished.
Money talks in any language. I want you to show me a couple other things too that are of interest here too, because I just think it's kind of neat the way things can stay in the family sometime. This is a kind of an unusual dispenser down here. Unusual meaning that there aren't probably a lot of these left, but how was this in the family?
Well, this was my mother and dad's, and we'd take it on picnics and things, you know, to cool the drinks. And then it was willed to David. By that time, he had his Coke collection, and so he has his grandmother's Coke cooler.
Isn't that nice?
Yes, it is.
Isn't that nice? And then you sometimes shop for him, don't you? When he has a birthday or something coming up, you always kind of know what to get him, right?
Right. Well, I shop year-round so that I have something when the occasion arises. And I found this at an antique show, and it's a bottle carrier from a ballpark, actually from Busch Stadium. So that was quite a good find.
From the 1930s.
Right.
You know, that they were calling that Sportsman's Park back then.
That's right.
Yeah, they changed it later. But that's what the Coke vendor would carry. Huh?
That's right.
And of course straw holders as well.
Exactly.
You always know what to get your son, don't you?
I do. I sure do.
That's a relief.
Gives me something to look for.
Well, David, this shopkeeper is deciding whether he should buy a Coca-Cola machine or not.
That is correct.
And the salesman, and I guess he's also the driver, is trying to sell him on this new ice machine, huh?
That is correct.
He actually brought this with him too, didn't he? Because this was the miniature that he was trying to sell.
Correct. Before the actual machine got into the actual shop, he would carry this actual salesman sample cooler around with him. He would carry it in this leather satchel, a business builder. And this is the most complete that I've ever found one. I've seen them in a couple other shows that I've gone to, but they've always been missing, for the most part, the cards, the salesman cards that are on there. And basically, he could go up to, you know, Mr. Druckard's Five and Dime and say, "Here's what you need," and then you'd flip through the cards. And if it was the junior ice, it would be the very small one, and then it would go up to the standard ice or the master cooler. So they go through, and this one has all of the cards still with it.
Wow.
It actually has the insulation, you know, a demonstration of what the insulation was. It also came with the advertisement page, and this was the original one that came with this one, would show, and with this little card up here would show, basically Coke was saying to the store owner, "We're doing all your advertisement for you. This is your advertisement. Look, We advertise in the Saturday Evening Post, Life, Liberty, Time, National Geographics. We do it all. And so that's the actual paperwork that actually traveled with this one.
Neat.
So it's kind of neat.
Now, what we're going to do is we're going to take a trip through time here. We're going to see the Coke machines that you have in this museum.
Yes.
From like oldest to newest. And we're going to do this kind of a quick history.
All right,
okay?
here we go. First off, this one is actually a reproduction. I wish I had one this nice. But this is a reproduction of one of the first chests that was done in the original color scheme. It is actually from the 20s and 30s. And this was an ice chest machine. And they would reach in and then, of course, pay the clerk.
Okay, so you had to pay. You still had to pay.
You had
It
to
didn't
pay.
take the money.
Right.
Yeah.
Not far after that, they started changing the color scheme and everything, and then they got into these.
Now, this is similar to the one that the salesman was trying to sell them on, the miniature.
Exactly. This is the junior. Correct. And basically, he showed the people that they could come up to the counter, and out of a cold vat of ice, you'd pull out your Coke.
I love these little 6-ounce bottles. When I was a kid, this is what we drank out of.
That's right.
That feels good.
It does. And then you just basically pay the clerk, and that was it.
Can I hold on to this?
Hang on to that,
Okay,
please.
let's-
But then over time, they started saying, well, we need to have a way of actually charging people and not have the clerk be bothered. So this was one of the first attempts at actually making a chest into a machine. So basically, they put a coin mechanism on top. The chest is still there, but then after you put your money in, this is a spin top, and this whole top would shift. And then you'd open up the top, and the last one, of course, that came out was that one, and you can't get to that one. Well, but then when you put your money in, this moves just enough to where you can get to that
one
next
out.
one.
Just one.
Just one. So that's how they kind of advanced from the chest. Then
Now, this is different. This looks like a home refrigerator.
it is. It does. It's actually the Jacobs 26, and a lot of people call this the mailbox. And it's just so unique as well because it vends out of the end of it. It's not out of the broad side of the machine. And so this is a very desirable machine, and of course this one's even wonderful. It's an original paint.
Wow.
It's very nice.
This one is very different. I mean, who'd have thought this was back in the, I guess we're talking about the 40s now, that there'd be, for a nickel, you get a Coke and a drink of water.
Absolutely.
There's a drinking fountain attached to
This
it.
is mid-40s, and it's really neat because the actual the coil that would come out of the wall that held the water came into the Coke machine and used the refrigeration of the Coke machine to cool the water before you got before you got a drink of water.
Brilliant.
Absolutely. This is one of the most common machines with collectors today. This is the Vendo 39, and basically, same concept. You can't get this bottle out. And when you put your money in, put in your nickel, then you do the paddle, and that would move just barely enough over to get that next bottle out. Ventilator 27, once again, a very unique machine. It vents out of the top. One of the neat things I think about these is, you know, back in those days, they didn't have computers to figure out how to build these. So it's just so neat how the uniqueness of them and everything.
Yeah.
So once again, Vendo 39, but this is a late model. After a couple of years, they changed them, and if they're painted white, that was considered a later model of the earlier ones. This one actually was in my house for
It's
years.
gone up to a dime now.
Moved up to a dime.
Inflation has reared its ugly head.
That's right. This one was in my house forever, and anytime somebody came to my house, I'd give them a dime, and here comes a Coke out of the chute, and they just always loved that. And so now it's neat that it's in the museum. So this one's been with me for a long time. Now, on all of these machines, the numbers on it, like Vendo 80, Vendo 39, it actually tells how many bottles it vends. So if it vends 80 bottles, that's all it holds.
Right.
And but it was a treat back then. It was a treat to have Coca-Cola back then. So it took a long time to vend through 80 bottles. Today, you'd go through 80 in a day, so it was no big deal. But this one was actually a factory machine. This would be like in Firestone or ADM or something like that. So this is a factory machine. This is a ventilator 242, so it held 242 bottles.
Now you're talking.
Yeah, so this is really neat. And of course, the return bottle rack would be a lot bigger too. The return bottle rack was 5 racks instead of just 3. So kind of neat for factories and all. So and those were mostly junk because they were just so big and cumbersome. The factories would just throw them out.
Yeah.
So it's really kind of rare to find a big machine like that still intact. This is kind of neat. Had a conveyor belt system of basically little tunnels that the pop would be in, and when you do this, it would just go through this whole chamber. On the Cavalier 51, this one's the most desirable machine for collectors, though. The way it's so small, compact. It's a Vendo 44. Once again, holds 44 bottles. Very, very desirable machine. So this is probably one of my most valuable machines at this point. And we go through the years, and then, of course, shortly thereafter, right in this area should be a lot of the machines that would have a door on the side. And right after these machines, they said, we need to come up with a way of giving somebody a choice. And that was when you would actually see the ones with the door in it. Well, my collection mostly, when I started, focused on Coke machines. You didn't get a choice. So I don't actually have one of those machines to show you yet. But that's where it kind of changed over and they gave people a choice. And those are also really popular with people, and doctors and lawyers have them in their basement and such. And so it's really nice that those machines, you know, are out there as well. But I kind of focused on before you got a choice.
Just Coke.
But then you get a museum and you have to start showing that there's some diversity here. So, of course, a lot of people remember this. You go to the barbershop, and this is the slider machine.
Oh, sure. You could get one out at a time, and doggone it, you could try.
That's right.
I would try to wedge this thing open to see if I could get two out, but never could.
Absolutely. And so basically, you couldn't see the bottle. You could just read on the cap what you had. So if it was Coke or Tab, you'd take this over and slide it in and pull it up. The funny story about these is that everybody tells them about is mechanics. These were always in garages, mostly, you know, at gas stations. The mechanics learned ways of taking a screwdriver, popping the top off, sticking a straw in it, and drinking it while it was still in the machine. And the poor Coke delivery guy would come back, open it up, and there's all these empty bottles in there. So those are always good stories. And no money. No money. Then we move into
the modern age.
In the 60s, we finally invented a can that has Coke in it. Now this is just kind of neat for like a little, you know, in an office space or something. But this outfit over here, this is one of the first Coke machines ever made. And you can tell because we were smart enough to make a machine that would vend Coca-Cola, but we weren't smart enough to invent the pull tab yet. And this was actually a bottle opener, or a can opener rather.
Oh, okay.
And there were two little blades in here, and your can would come out 100% sealed tight. And you'd put your can in there and go ka-chunk, and basically it had two little blades that would just put tops, you know, put two little holes in the top of your can. And that's how this worked. Now, luckily, shortly thereafter, we finally invented the pull tab. And this was actually retrofitted with a little garbage can. So that's why this machine's so neat, because it still has the can opener on it.
Plus a place to put the tab. It doesn't have a place to put the tab?
Doesn't have a place to put a tab because they left this one in.
Okay, so this is, the new one had a place to put the tab.
Right, because they took these out. So that's what's neat about this one, that it still has the opener.
And of course, this looks very familiar.
The 70s. The 70s. And these are, you can still find these around today, and that's kind of the whole machine run right there. So,
well, Lucy Brownlee, one of the first things you see when you enter this Coliseum is this airbrushed artwork, which you did, which is vintage 1962, and you took great pains to make it go back to that era.
Yes, to make sure that all the content of the painting was from that era, from 1962.
Yeah. For somebody who doesn't know what airbrush art is, can you briefly describe how you do it?
Well, you use a tool called an airbrush, which is a small paint gun. And in this case, this is airbrushed in a urethane and then clear coated, just like a car would be.
You're into motorcycles. In fact, a lot of what you do is paint motorcycles for people who collect motorcycles, I guess, huh? So you're very familiar with this.
Yes. Yeah, that's a 1962 Duo Glide Harley Davidson. And everything in the painting, the girl's, what she's wearing is from that era. The Coke bottles and the packaging's from 1962. The slogan, Pause and Refresh, is from 1962. It was a lot of fun to put it all together.
I'll bet. And I notice if we look real carefully, people from Decatur can look over in the left-hand side of this, and they can see Elam's Drive-In. Of course, everybody who lived in Decatur, grew up in Decatur, knew about Elam's, didn't they?
Right. And I'm a transplant from California, so I had to be educated about Elam's. But David told me, if we put Elam's in there, it's going to be, you know, it's going to draw people back to that time.
Well, thanks for sharing this work with us.
Okay, thank you very much.
Of all of the items for sale here at the Coke Museum and Gift Shop, the biggest seller is the old-fashioned Coca-Cola. It comes from Mexico these days. It's made from the original recipe using sugar, not high fructose corn syrup as they changed in the 1970s. You grab your Coke, you pop your top. It's just like the old days. With another Illinois Story in Decatur, I'm Mark McDonald. Thanks for watching.
For a copy of the program you've just seen, send $19.95 for VHS or $24.95 for DVD to Network Knowledge, P.O. Box 6248, Springfield, Illinois 62708. Be sure to include the program name, subject, and the date the program aired. You may also order with your credit card by calling 800-232-3605.
Hi, I'm Mark Wahlberg. Are you looking for entertainment with brains? This is the place.
This is one of the most perfect examples I've ever seen.
When you told me that you put it in water, I was shocked.
These things are hot as a firecracker.
That's unbelievable.
That much?
Well, if I sent $1 to each of my cousins, they'd all get one.
Don't miss our visit to Salt Lake City, Utah, next time on Antiques Roadshow.
Monday night at 7.
I want economic opportunity to be spread across this land.
This is a man who was so big that reached so far and made it, and then let the whole thing crumble.
He would often say, I don't want to be the first president who's lost a war.
The definitive collection of presidential biographies continues with LBJ on American Experience.
Monday night at 8. WSEC in Springfield, WQEC in Quincy, and WMEC in Macomb. Network Knowledge. Watch and learn.
This edition of Illinois Stories is brought to you by ADECO.